Bon dia, good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you here in Lisbon and on behalf of the Portuguese Competition Authority, a very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us here and also to the more than 400 that are joining us online for this edition of the ICN Cartel Workshop. So let me start by saying that this is truly a special date because it's the first in-person ICN event in a very long time, at least a year and a half. And so I am sure you share with me a sense of appreciation for being able to be here in the same room after so much time. But I also want to welcome not only the 100 of you present here from 24 jurisdictions, but also, as I said, the other 400 who are joining us online and participating actively online from more than 40 other jurisdictions. Together, we make the antitrust community globally with a keen interest in cartels. So first, let me say that the International Competition Network has turned 20 years this year. The network has been all about sharing knowledge and sharing experience and about connecting competition enforcers and experts from across the globe. Because of the ICN, we have, over time, become more effective anti-cartel enforcers in our jurisdictions because of the best practice we share, but also more efficient on a global scale because of international cooperation. And as a consequence of this, there are now less places in the world for firms to hide when breaching antitrust law. We have also become more deterrent as enforcers, more transparent, and more effective, thanks to the contribution of both global enforcers and NGAs that participate in ICN discussions. This is the spirit of the ICN. And at the Portuguese Competition Authority, we're strongly committed to enhancing the relevance of the ICN. And I'm sure you will agree that one of its most relevant moments is when we discuss the most harmful behavior to consumers, that is, when we discuss cartels. So let me go over why cartel workshops, and this one in particular, matter so much. In the current context, anti-cartel enforcement is extremely valuable to society. Countries around the world are strongly increasing public spending, as you know, in the context of economic recovery strategies, and this is done simultaneously with a strong movement towards new digital and green standards. Moreover, firms are revising their business models, and workers who were affected by the COVID crisis are looking for new professional avenues. And all of this means that we are at present in a context that may induce collusive behavior. And therefore, we must maintain high vigilance for so-called crisis cartels. Crisis cartels, as you know, are those in which firms affected by a crisis agree to reduce overcapacity and to maintain high prices. And all of this occurs when many households and firms are in a financially vulnerable situation. We must, therefore, in my view at least, do our best so that efforts of taxpayers, households, firms are not misappropriated by members of a cartel. How do we do this? We can start by being up to speed in all dimensions of cartel enforcement, and that is prevention, detection, investigation, and deterrent sanctioning. This workshop will allow precisely for that. Dear colleagues, the fight against cartels is at the heart of antitrust enforcement. And this is why at the Portuguese Competition Authority, the ADC, we have maintained anti-cartel enforcement as our core priority in the past 5 years, and we have sanctioned dozens of companies and associations. Of a total of more than 900 million in fines, more than 80% were related to illegal horizontal practices. In times such as the current one, the economic recovery, we also find the right amount of inspiration among ICN members to keep competition enforcement very much alive. And as citizens, we would benefit from seeing competition enforcement and competition advocacy embedded in countries' recovery agenda. Competition is, as I'm sure you'll agree, a catalyzer for a more innovative, more inclusive, and more resilient economic recovery. And therefore, we need more, not less, competition enforcement in our economies. So all of this relates to the ambitious agenda we have for the coming 3 days. We will discuss how anti-cartel enforcement enables a stronger economic recovery, as I mentioned. And there are many dimensions in which economic recovery and anti-cartel enforcement intersect. I just mentioned crisis cartels, but also slightly mentioned labor markets, and let me say a few words on this. Firms may collude to coordinate their strategies in labor markets, namely by engaging in no-poach and wage fixing agreements, but even coordinating strategies for dismissing employees. At the ADC, we recently published an issues paper on labor market agreements and competition policy, along with a guidebook for firms to avoid anti-competitive agreements in such markets. We state that employers should adopt an independent and competitive conduct. And by doing so, they will be contributing to higher levels of efficiency and innovation, which are even more essential in the current context. Another aspect that concurs to a more resilient economic recovery is combating bid rigging in public procurement. With such levels of public spending, we want to avoid wasting funds due to a lack of competition in tenders. And it's therefore essential to ensure that public tenders are efficiently designed so as to promote bidder participation and competition. And this also lowers the risk of seeing cartels being formed for the tender. At the ADC, we've also put in place a full program on combating bid rigging in public procurement. This is an outreach initiative that has had several positive results that span from an increase in the quantity and quality of tips received at the ADC to more procedures with efficient tender design. And more importantly for this audience, it has led to open important cases in sectors such as railway maintenance and more recently one in security and digital surveillance services and two in the health sector. Finally, investigating and sanctioning cartels in sectors with a direct impact on households is particularly relevant in times of economic downturn. Again, at the ADC, we have been addressing hub-and-spoke agreements in the large retail sector. We have issued 4 sanctioning decisions for this conspiracy over the past 11 months. These schemes, as you well know, deprive consumers of more choice and better prices in many essential goods. Hub-and-spoke conspiracies is, as you also know, one of the topics to be addressed at this workshop. So later in the agenda, we will also look at the effectiveness of competition enforcers' toolboxes in their mission to prevent and combat anti-competitive agreements. And this is particularly relevant when digitization has so much changed business models and the way firms and enforcers alike work. No doubt throughout the years, competition agencies have grown in resources and expertise, and let me give you a few examples. Enforcers now extensively use IT forensic tools that enable case teams to seize and review evidence in a more efficient way. Many enforcers have complaints platforms with a dedicated tip line and even sometimes an anonymous whistleblower tool. Several have developed as we did at the ADC, screening tools for public procurement procedures that allow for an efficient detection of suspicious patterns. So no doubt the toolbox has become more efficient. And this is excellent given the risks that now exist related to the surge in public support. So the toolbox has become no doubt efficient, but I would emphasize also at the EU level the relevance of the ICN Plus directive. And as you may know, the directive aims to empower competition authorities of EU members to be more effective enforcers and ensure the proper functioning of the EU internal market. In particular, the ICN Plus directive ensures that agencies can seize digital evidence, including emails and instant messaging. Finally, during this workshop, we will discuss the challenges ahead in anti-cartel enforcement with a focus on the digital era. Competition agencies have set a strategy to tackle concerns in the digital space. This strategy has become even more important given that over the past year and a half or almost 2 years, there's been a significant move into the digital space by consumers. And this strategy by enforcers encompasses conduct from dominant players, but also coordination between competitors. And that's also going to be discussed in this forum. It is important to understand the use of algorithms in artificial intelligence, including in anti-cartel enforcement. Again, let me say a word of what the ADC has been doing in this. It has been deepening its understanding of the use of algorithms in artificial intelligence, and this was first the object of an issues paper in 2019 on digital ecosystems, big data and algorithms. But we have come to an important conclusion during the past years, is that we benefit as enforcers from pooling the talent we have in different departments in informing the anti-cartel teams or the anti-cartel enforcement teams of potentially illegal behavior in the digital space. So we are currently conducting an open call to update and gather information on potential barriers to entry and expansion of firms in the digital space, including exclusionary strategies. And this is an open survey aimed at listening to the views of different stakeholders. And we're confident that this will allow us to make the digital features of our economy work in a more competitive manner to the benefits of consumers. And that's an important point that I wanted to do. Enforcers are generally relatively small entities that tackle competition across vast economic sectors. And we have a lot to gain from pooling our talent from different departments and achieve a more targeted enforcement by using this pooled knowledge. So there's a lot to be discussed in the coming 3 days. And to conclude, I would say that I really want to have a word of appreciation for your continued antitrust enforcement during the pandemic, including carrying out unannounced inspections during these times. You have proved that antitrust enforcers are determined, deterrent, and transparent agencies. And together we have been able to deliver robust cartel enforcement through these times. We have indeed, I believe, kept the perceived risks of illegal behavior at a higher level than potential rewards, as we always like to do, but specifically during the pandemic. And I hope that the coming days will allow each of us to get up to speed with the state of the art in cartel enforcement in many parts of the world, so that next year when we meet again, we will be able to discuss the work that each of you did in combating new cartels, and by doing so, adding value to our citizens and to firms that play by the rules. So thank you for attending the workshop.